Welcome to Da Vinci's Discourse, where the minds of today's most innovative entrepreneurs are unveiled and explored. And my name is Kyle Campbell, your guide on this journey into the depths of the entrepreneurial psyche. So sit back, relax, and get ready to dive into the minds of the greats. This is Da Vinci's Discourse.
All right, cool. So Gogo, it's awesome to talk with you. So, tell me about yourself. I'm curious. What do you do?
Oh gosh, that's a loaded question. What I used to do and what I do today kind of changed over the years, right? As we evolved and as technology changes. But I'm very much involved in a lot of different aspects of real estate. So I started out as an individual agent back in 2011. I got licensed in Michigan and just sold houses, right, for a living. And then I became really good at it and through the power of social media marketing. And they started calling me the social media queen of real estate. And I started speaking and teaching others. And I built two boot camps. I have two Comma Club award-winning boot camps. One is for agent attraction, one is for social media marketing. And then I built a team in Michigan. I removed myself from production, moved to Florida. So right now I live in Florida.
Nice.
And then, especially during COVID, I had lots of time to think because I had nothing else to do. Right?
True, didn't we all?
I got to the end of
Yeah.
Netflix, so I was like, okay, I need to do something with my brain cells, and decided to start a bunch of different companies. So I have my hands in a lot of different things. Like I'm starting a mortgage arm. I'm partaking in a fractionalized real estate company. I have a TV show that's turning into a podcast, that's turning into a radio show. So it's like
Nice.
just a little bit of everything. And I do a lot of online coaching and online programs. I have one that's called Go Get On Webinars, where I pretty much just share my knowledge. It's a membership based platform where people can come and pretty much what I realize is that the reason to my success is the 6 inches between my ears, right? The knowledge that I have learned through the years. I also feel blessed with meeting some really cool, very smart people in the industry that I learned from. And so I asked them to come and teach their knowledge. So inside of Go Get On, we have all kinds of speakers teaching all kinds of different things. And I believe us as entrepreneurs, we need to know. And one of them is AI, right? I teach a lot of AI for realtors. And so that's pretty much it in a thing. And then of course we have real estate investments. I do a lot of public speaking. I do a lot of podcasts for others, like, being on your podcast. And that's pretty much it.
I love it. So you're essentially the queen of real estate in all aspects of it, and you're getting into the mortgaging end of it too. So you're essentially creating a sort of monopoly where you're having every single piece of the real estate puzzle solved by working with you and your company, as well as helping other realtors grow their businesses internationally or even just nationally around the States. It's fascinating what you're doing. What's your current passion right now? What's your current focus? If you had to pick one thing, what's the one thing that you're working on that you love the most right now?
Oh gosh. I mean, to me, I love people, right? I'm in a people business. So if people ask me what I
Yeah.
do for a living, I'm in a people business.
Yeah.
Um, and really, I love the quote that you can have absolutely anything in life, the more people you have to get what they want. It's a Zig Ziglar quote. And
Yeah.
I love sharing my knowledge. And most importantly, I love seeing other people being able to get the same results when they learn the same lesson, right? So I think if I have to choose what I love the most is I love sharing my knowledge and seeing
Mm.
others succeed.
Okay, so let's say that I'm a realtor and I'm looking to start growing my company. I want to sell more houses, get more deals going in the deal workflow. What are some things that you would recommend that I start with? Where would you start with? What questions would you ask me? What advice would you give me as a beginner realtor to start being able to market my services in a way that's effective in the marketplace?
Yeah. So number one, if you asked me this question like 10 years ago, when the only thing as realtors we could do was commissions, I would have just pretty much went into the conversation of build your brand and start selling houses, right? Today, the industry is a little different. So I would ask questions like, do you want to have active income only or passive income at some point? Do you have a retirement plan? Do you want to have a retirement plan? Right. Those
Mhm.
things were not even an option 10 years ago. Today, it is an option
Wow.
with the different type of brokerages, right? So if I were to start as a realtor today, I think the number one and most important is what is your brand, right?
Mm.
So most realtors don't have one. They are like Brighton's favorite realtor.com is their website. And then on Instagram is Kevin Smith. And then on Facebook is Kevin, your favorite realtor in Brighton, right? Like, I'm
The
like, dude,
classic.
like you don't know who you are. Like if I go to your Facebook, I'm not certain that that's the same person on Instagram, and I'm not certain that's
Right.
.com. And then
Yeah.
so many people don't have any pictures of themselves. And I don't know why it's so hard for people to wrap their head around is that we are not selling real estate. Like we are selling our services, right?
Right.
Ourselves, our
Yes.
services. So
Yes.
the question
Yes.
is, why should Joe Schmo down on the road use me as the realtor when they have 40,000 other realtors in Michigan they can choose from? And that
Yeah.
is the differentiating factor by marketing yourself properly, right?
Mm.
And so I think number one is, what is your brand? And then you have to go and find that and make sure it's available on every single platform. Like I am Gogo Bethke or Gogo's Real Estate everywhere. I am not luxury realtor in livingstoncounty.com, right? Like
Yes.
you
Yes.
have to figure out what is your brand. And as soon as you have that, you have to think about it. You're going to have to pitch that brand for the rest of your life. Like it better roll off the tongue. It better feels like home. Like I can say Gogo Bethke, Gogo Real Estate until the cows come home. That's who I am, right? So it's very easy for me to market it. So as soon as you have that, then you have to go to Instagram and you have to go to GoDaddy and see if that exact thing is available. And I mean exact. So if you are Gogo Bethke here, then you Gogo Bethke everywhere else, right? So if it's not available, then you have to be like, okay, so I have to rethink that. Okay, then you could play with it. You could say like the real Gogo Bethke or the Gogo Bethke, or like you can play with that a little bit, but the brand has to stay the brand, right? So that would be number one, is finding your .com and then finding that name available on Instagram, because on those two platforms you can only have one Gogo Bethke. You cannot on Facebook, you can have multiple Gogo Bethkes, that's fine, right? On LinkedIn, you can have multiple Gogo Bethke, that's fine, right? But on Instagram and on your own .com, there can only be one with that specific name. So as soon as you have your brand down, then you really need to start marketing yourself, right? You have to have a schedule and start posting content so people can find you and you can be an option. People in average spend 8 hours a day. Well, during COVID, 8 hours a day, now more like 4 hours a day on social media. But that's 4 hours of advertising that works for you for free for the rest of your life. I can post something today and you can see it today, or you can see it 10 years from now, right? So it's always working for me. So if you're asking me, that would be the number one route I would take, is social media, and have that nail that down. And then the second one for me, what works best is face-to-faces. So I have originally, my real name is super impossible to pronounce. I had no sphere of influence. Like I didn't go to college here. I didn't have a cousin that's going to buy a house from me. So I needed to meet with people, and I figured if I could just get in front of them, like there's no way, like I know I can convince anyone to work with me if we could get a face-to-face. So for me, that would open houses. So I would do a lot of open houses on weekends, Saturdays and Sundays. And if the agent listening is like, well, I don't have any listings, then reach out to the person who does. There is someone in your office, there's someone in your brokerage that has more listings than time of the day, and beg them for an opportunity, right? And then I would do 2 open houses a weekend, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. And then you have to have really good follow-up game with those people, but they will turn into a client. And more than likely, they have to sell in order to buy. So now you got yourself a buyer at an open house who needs to sell in order to buy. So it's a win-win.
No kidding. So you're talking about forming joint ventures at that point and having this connection base so that you've got the people that would be able to help you because it would help them by helping you. And so you form these win-win relationships like that. I love that. When it comes to building your brand like this, how do you know, first of all, what to brand yourself as? I mean, how did you know that Gogo Bethke would be the right brand for you? How does somebody know?
It's not, I don't want anyone to think
what I
like,
mean?
oh, what you need to brand. No, you brand yourself. You brand who you are. Like if you
Okay.
start going off script, so said the way God
Right.
has you to be, it's not going to feel right. So I'm not asking anyone to
What
start
feels
copying.
right. That's a
Yeah,
good point too, right?
exactly. Like you need to market you, right? Like it's, I
Yes,
like to say it
yes.
as the shameless self-promotion. I don't think of anybody else. I think of me when I'm marketing, right? This is truly who I am. And so it comes super easy to talk about what I'm thinking, events I'm going to, who are my clients, what success story I have this week, what 5-star referrals we got, like reviews we got, right? Like it's literally, I'm talking about what's happening in my life. And that's what I want everyone to talk about. The best way of putting it is I'm looking for the people who are looking for me. Right?
Yes.
If I change my character just so I can get a deal, so sad, that deal is going to go sideways because at some point your personality is going to clash with that other person. So I'm not looking for people who don't automatically like me, right? Like not even for a commission. I'm looking for the people who are just like me, because at that point we're going to smooth sail all the way to the closing table without any hiccups, and happy clients refer. right? And then I know at the end I'm going to get their cousin and their best friend from high school, right, to come and real estate with me or business with me. So I'm not telling you to change who you are. I'm telling you just market who you are.
I love that. And go with what feels right. That's something that resonated with me with what you just said, is judge it by the kinesthetic feeling that you get based on the internal response of what you're presenting yourself as. And that's that genuine, wholesome self that you're trying to portray to the world in a way that's resonating with others. What do you say to the individual who's, let's say, they got the classic realtor sign that's up on a billboard somewhere. It's their big face, and then they're saying, hey, you know, so and so's favorite realtor, or you know, maybe they have an alliteration or something. The classic the billboard sign that you see in every city. What do you say to the realtor who's doing that right now?
I mean, nothing's wrong with that if you can afford it. I just think they charge an arm and a leg. And I think if I paid, last time and this is like at least 10 years ago, I looked at a billboard, it was $8,000 a month. I have no idea what they charge today, right? And also back in the day, there wasn't digital billboards, right? Like when you got a billboard, like, what was your billboard? It was 24/7 your billboard, right? I don't know what they charge today on a digital billboard. I think it would be super important at what time of the day you're getting featured. So if you're getting an hour, like, is that at 2 a.m.? Because then what does it worth, right? The semi-truck drivers that are driving down the highway who are not even in the area are not buying a house from you, right? So I don't know anything about digital billboards anymore or what they charge, but I can't imagine being any cheaper than it was 10 years ago. And if that's the case, the way I look at it, okay, let me get this straight. I can have a billboard for $8,000, or I can spend $8,000 on my own Facebook ads and actually have control over the traffic. Because what happens with the billboard, right? What happens is you sit there and you hope that while they are driving, they're going to write down your phone number.
Yeah, good luck. No
And then
kidding.
they're going to call you.
Yeah,
right?
that's another point too.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot
There's all this
of
friction.
ifs. Versus, I feel like with Facebook ads and things like that, especially if you're promoting like a first-time home buyer event, or if you're promoting something that they would have an interest in, I feel like the chances are much higher that they're going to click the link, and then you're going to be able to collect their information. And as soon as you have their information, you have the control over. You can dial them. You don't have to sit back and wait of who's on potentially on the other end. So if I was to spend money, most of my advertising is organic. So I don't spend much advertising dollars. And so I'm not one to say, go spend $4,000 on Facebook. But if I had to choose between spending money on billboards or spending the same amount of money on my own Facebook ads, I would choose Google ads or Facebook ads all day before I would spend money on a billboard.
Yeah, no kidding, because you're talking about controlling the traffic at the end of the day, as opposed to just having it be transient, hoping, praying one day, someday that somebody calls, as opposed to capturing somebody's email address and being able to follow up with them long term, provide value and be that go-to realtor, as opposed to somebody. And that goes to all marketing in terms of any business. You know, you're talking about capturing a lead and being able to nurture that lead through a sequence over time, build that relationship. And so then when it comes down to for them to choose who they're going to choose as a realtor, or to teach them Facebook ads or anything, they're going to choose you because you've been providing value over time. What is your suggested realtor funnel that you take people through? Like, is there a free guide? Like, let's say an example would be something like says Toronto's guide to real estate prices, and then you provide value to them, and then you're able to move them over to your email list from there, and then you're helping them make a decision, as opposed to every other realtor who's just trying to make a sale. What's the funnel that you recommend?
So it just kind of depends on who your target audience is, right? So if you want to get buyers, and then you do the Toronto real estate market guide, then you're going to get buyers, right? Most of the time. Or you might get sellers who are thinking about, I would just want to be more specific if I was to do that. So I am right now, don't get me wrong, I am very much in the real estate business, selling real estate with my local team in Michigan. But the way my business has been built through the years is that the leads come to us organically. I don't have to put much effort into it. And the effort is more on the organic social media marketing. So my team members have to post every single day. They have a specific posting schedule. So every Monday they post a listing. Every Tuesday they post one of our listings. Every Wednesday search for homes. Every Thursday, these are the open houses for Livingston County. And every Friday, this is how much your home is worth, right? So I keep posting the same thing over and over again. So organically, we are getting the people who they pretty much raise their hand, they want to buy or sell. But if I was to, so what you're suggesting with the free things, I absolutely do that, but I do it on the agent side for agent attraction purposes and growing my team and downline.
Yes.
And selling my online coaching products versus doing it on the buyer and seller side. If I was to do it on the buyer and seller side, I would be just very super intentional. So for example, let's say that you, okay, let's back it up one more step.
Okay.
I teach this all the time. We make usually 3% of the sale price, right? That's
Okay. Yeah.
about nationwide average. If that is the case, or at least my average, I should say, if that is the case, then is the work the same? Meaning, if I sell $100,000 house, I make 3% of it. Do I do the same amount of work than if I sell $1 million house to make 3% of it? The work is the same. The commission is not. Right? So I want you to, if you sell $100,000 at 3%, you're getting $3,000. If you sell $1 million at 3%, you're getting $30,000. You're doing the same amount of work. Which commission do you want to collect? So this is the reason why it's not just of what you should put out there. You have to ask yourself the question, why? So if I was to target buyers today, what I know today, I would be like, okay, where are the most expensive homes? It's usually golf communities. Right? So I would probably come up with a list of, or gated communities, right? So I would come up with a list of, here are the top 10 gated communities in Livingston County. If you would like to download and see what's on the market, just click the link below. Well, guess what they have to give me in order to get the top 10 gated communities, right? Well, they would have to give me their email address. Now I have something to follow up with. Now I can take that email address, upload it to Facebook if I want to run ads, right, as a custom audience, and now I can target them over and over and over again. So it's just, so I'm very structured and very specific of what I want the end result to be, and then I base the step-by-step steps how we're going to get there, right? Because if you were just to list, here are the 10 new listings in Livingston County, well, there could be vacant rent for $37,000, and it could be lakefront property, and I don't know, for 2.7 million, but then you kind of just all over the place. I'd rather you figure out who's your target audience is, which is the group of people that you feel most comfortable with, who are just like you, right? That's your low-hanging fruit, and I would go for that systematically. And I would do the same thing on the listing side, right? Figure out who's your target audience, where are they located, what do you enjoy selling? So for example, let's say you're a golfer and you're a golf club member, like community member, then just figure out like, hey guys, like these are the top 10 per square foot homes that sold in a golf community in the last month. If you would like to see what they look like so you can price your home accordingly, click the link below. Right? Like you need to control what outcome you want to have, not just kind of throw darts in the dark. So that's what I would do. Number one, figure out, I go off of the money, right? Because I work for money. And then the second would be, who is that target audience that you feel most comfortable working with? You might be a fisherman, like my husband's a fisherman. He would run a report of like, hey guys, these are the lakefront properties that came on the market on the chain of lakes this week. If you want the list, click below.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
So it's
So
very
it has
intentional with the marketing, right?
exactly.
I love that.
You have to be super specific of what you want to do and the type of people you want to work with.
Yeah, and then you think about where those people are, even the zip code wise, or you think about what they're buying before. Maybe you can do a joint venture partnership with somebody who's going to be hooking up with people who would be buying these houses in your target audience. The question becomes, how does one move from selling, let's say, $100,000, $200,000, $400,000 homes to these $4 million homes? How does one move from this to this if they chose to make some more money with their existing skill sets?
So let me put it this way: it's super simple fix. If you post a $100,000 home, you're going to get $100,000 buyers. If you post a $4 million home, you're going to get $4 million buyers.
Right. So how do you secure the listing when it comes to getting a $4 million home?
You didn't say listing, I said buyers, the same commission.
Okay, fair enough.
Now, if you want to get the listing after you got a few buyers in that price range, then you can start marketing the closed transactions that you did.
I like that.
Right, and then start getting listings with that, or go
Because
door
you can bring a buyer, because every realtor is going to be happy if you bring a buyer to them, and now you've upgraded yourself from 100,000 to $1 million just by bringing the buyer. You're bringing the value to the table, and now you're able to make that upgrade. It's an interesting play. I like that a lot. What about in terms of the person?
I think most people overthink it. It's super simple. The control is in your hands.
No kidding. Interesting. And so the control
the work is the same. Like, I don't even know why realtors would be so afraid of that. Like, what's the difference between selling a $4 million house and selling a $400,000 house? What's the difference? It's a house.
The difference could be perceived intimidation by wealthy buyers and sellers. There could be a feeling of
Actually, wealthy buyers
inferiority.
and sellers are the easiest to work with because they have money. The poor people
Yeah.
are the one who's going to fight you for every single penny. They're going to negotiate unrealistically because they can't
Right.
afford to make that fixes. The wealthy
Mm.
buyer says, that's fine. That's fine. We'll deal with it when we move in.
Because they can afford to
It's
fix it
much
when it comes down to it. Right.
exactly.
I love
It's
that.
much
No
easier,
kidding.
in my opinion, to work with someone wealthy than it is to work with the lower income people.
What about in
And don't
terms
get
of
me wrong,
building a
I work with
brand though?
anyone because I love negotiations and marketing is my
Yeah, I can
favorite thing
tell. I
on
can tell.
earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about in terms of on the marketing end of it? How do you go about building a brand that people would be happy and excited to go about hiring you to buy or sell a home for them? How do you get that perceived value in the marketplace so that way you're the number one pick when somebody comes down to that decision time?
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the podcast, and I want to let you know that I've got a free book that you can get if you want to tap into more of these resources. And you can get that for free at kylesbook.com. Back to the podcast.
Yeah, I don't think it's perceived value. It is the value. It is who I am. It's what I achieve.
Value is perceived. All value is perceived. Exactly.
Yeah,
It's the same thing.
when you're marketing yourself, right, it's a fact at that point. It's not a perceived value. It is what I have achieved. Now they might not see the value in it, but that doesn't take away what I achieved, right?
Right,
This is
right.
why it's
So
important to. I think the most important part is to look for the. I'm looking for the people who are looking for me. There might be people, no matter what I achieve in this life, they're never going to see value working with me. And those are not
right.
the people that I'm looking for. In other ways, said Starbucks doesn't look for the people who don't drink coffee. I'm
No
not
kidding.
in
You're
I'm
trying
not
to
in the
convert
business
them.
of convincing people to work with me. No, no,
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
not. I'm not looking to convert someone over who doesn't like the way I talk because I have an accent, or doesn't like the fact that I'm an immigrant, or doesn't like the fact that I market myself. There's people that are going to like you and the people who don't. I'm not in the bit. I'm not spending lick of energy on converting someone over who doesn't. I'm looking for the people who do.
Right. And so how do you attract the people that do? Because you've built this brand up where it's fascinating. I mean, you were selling courses and you're helping realtors change their lives in an interesting and fascinating way. How do you go about building a brand like the one that you've built up? What are some of the lessons that you've learned along the way that if you could only go back and tell your 10-year-old self 10 years ago, say, hey, look at do the A, B, and C. What would A, B, and C be if you could just tell her that right now?
I think number one is be you.
Mm,
Um, and I think most people have a hard time with that because they care about what people think. So I think that's number one lesson is that
right.
I joke and say is like I start caring about your opinion as soon as I can deposit it into my bank account.
I freaking love it. That's
So
what
to
I'm talking
me,
about, man. That's
yeah,
what I'm talking
I
about.
don't I don't care about other people's opinion. I have an opinion about myself. I know who I am.
Mm,
I know what I bring to the table. And if I'm not someone's cup of tea, that is perfectly fine. In other
mm,
ways, said, I'm not in the business of making new best friends. I'm in the business of making money. Right. So they don't
right.
have to like me. If they believe that I'm the best marketer or I'm the best
Mm,
negotiator or I'm the best for the job, they're going to hire me, not because they want to be best friend and sipping mimosas after closing, but because they know that
right.
I'm the best for the job. Now, if they don't believe I'm best for the job, then they're never going to give me the opportunity, right? So I want people to realize when they're building their brand, as long as you are you,
Mm,
people are literally going. This is why it's called attraction, because the people who want to work with me, they will just appear. They will just
mm,
appear. They will raise their hands
mm,
like, "Oh, go! Guess what? We are having a baby. Oh my gosh!" And Joe is switching jobs, and now we have to move, and we need to sell this one, and we need to buy one in North Carolina. And I don't know, do you know anybody who can help us in North Carolina? And it just kind of goes like that, right? It's just like a good old conversation with the people in the world. So just number one, be you. Don't ever change that just because something works for, like, because you follow people, right, and you see them doing things and that works for them. It's never going to work for you unless you have those same
mm,
qualities and you see the world in the same light, right, which we don't have the same qualities. Not a single human is created equal, meaning that not a single human has your fingerprint, not a single human has your retina, not a single human has your exact DNA. We are different by nature. So I want everyone to think to stay in your own lane, right?
mm,
As long as you're true to yourself and you listen to your gut feeling and you do what God created you to be, you are on the right
mm,
path. And it's super simple. And the people who have to cross your path will just automatically cross your path. So number one, be you. Number two, be consistent, right? So
right.
you can't
Mm.
just be like, okay, go, I posted. Where are all the leads? 2 weeks
Come
later,
on, I posted 1, 2 times. Come on, you
yeah,
said they'd
for
come
all the leads,
in.
right? He said if I
Yeah.
post, it's gonna work, right? Well, I posted at least once or twice a day for the last since 2011 into my feed, and then I posted at least 10 to 15 times into my stories on Instagram alone, which then get taken from there and post to Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok. So if you multiply that, we are talking probably millions of times than I have posted, right, in the 11 years, so 13 years. So I would say consistency. Just where most people will give up. What happens in the real estate industry is the real estate roller coaster, right? So they do this, and then they get all of these clients and like, oh my gosh, like there's no freaking way. I'm so busy. I have to close this deal and I have to do that home inspection and I have that appraisal. I have to call this client back and oh my gosh, and a title company. So they stop doing everything they did to get these 10 clients, right? Because now they're so busy with these 10 clients. So then what happens is these 10 close. And then you look back and be like, now what? I have nothing else. Like I closed these, nothing else. So that's the real estate roller coaster, right? So I think it's super important to get help from day one. You should have a TC, which is a transaction coordinator. You should not be pushing paper because that is not your time best spent. And you should have a virtual assistant so they can continue doing all of your posting. They can do all of your DMs. They can do all of your spreadsheets. They can do all of your marketing. They can do everything in the background while your legs on the ground, right? And eventually you have to build a team. Eventually, you're going to get yourself a buyer's agent, then you're going to get a listing specialist, you're going to remove yourself from production, build a bunch of other businesses. But that is the time frame of things, and not to partake in the real estate roller coaster.
I love that, for a consistent flow of deals without being overwhelmed by the work short term. It's the flow of life, really. You're talking about winter and summer, and they go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. So, what do you say to the person who's like, "Well, yeah, but dude, my life's boring. I mean, what am I going to post on social media, right?" I feel like that's the number one objection that somebody would give you to that statement. So, what do you say to that individual?
Well, that just means that they're not doing the right thing. So if that person says my life is boring, then I would ask them the question, why is your calendar empty?
It's well, it's one means the other, but one leads to the other, right? So they're not connecting with people, so they're having an empty calendar, which leads to more boredom, which leads to less people connecting with them, and it's an online
Exactly.
feedback loop.
So if you
Yeah.
fill your calendar with stuffs and meetings and interviewing local experts, like you can take lenders out, you can take title companies out, you can take inspectors, appraisers, a moving company, a painter, like anybody that has
Yes.
anything to do with the real estate that you can't close without them, right? I would take them out for coffees and be like, okay, tell me your side of the deal. Like, let's say it's a moving company. Okay, tell me, how much heads up time do you need? How long does it usually take to move a company? How much does it usually cost to move a family of four of a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, right? Like, how do you guys work? Do you have insurance? Does the moving family has to get you insurance? Like, how does this work? And then anything I would learn from that, I would create a quick little video. Hey guys, I met today with Joe Schmo from Two Brothers Moving Company, right? And these are the certain things that I learned about moving today. So if you are thinking about moving and you need a moving company,
Love
please hit
that.
up Joe Schmo over here from Two Brothers in a Truck, right? And then so now I marketed them, which I'm going to tag them, which means they're going to share my post because I just marketed them, right? Which makes me the expert because the information came through my mouth, right? So now I'm looking like an expert on their profile, which now their people are going to follow me. My people are going to be like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that about moving. So next time they're thinking about moving, guess who they're going to call?
No kidding.
It's
So
super
you
simple.
become,
I don't know why people overthinking it. Fill your calendar. I can tell you, one of the best ways of saying it, show me your calendar and I'll show you your bank account.
yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yo, what you just went over right there is like a blueprint to success as a realtor right there. I mean, like that was fascinating. And then also another thing you can do is count. Well, you can take advantage of the joint ventures that you could have with the painting companies because, or any of the companies you just mentioned, because these are the people who know the folks who are moving right now, whether they're buying or selling or both. You can connect with one individual who can refer you and maybe even be financially compensated for that. Maybe it depends on the local laws and stuff, but and the way you position the deal. But you can connect with, let's say, a painter or a contractor, the people who are buying or selling right now are connecting with, and forming a relationship with these folks and be able to have these referrals coming to you by these relationships down the road. And so you're digging your well before you're thirsty, or as you're thirsty. For a lot of realtors out there, this is the place that you can start getting some real traction really fast. And you're saying to start documenting all of these processes so that the marketplace can see it, and you're tapping into their audience as well as their potential referrals down the line. It's brilliant.
Got
It's
it.
absolutely fascinating. Yes, it's incredibly
And then you can
fascinating.
start a preferred vendors list. So as you're meeting with these people, start a document called a preferred vendors list. And then you add the
Right.
company name, their phone number, their website, their email address, who's the contact person. Then you can ask them, hey, if I was to send someone to, let's say it's a painting company, is there anything that you can give to my clients for free, right? So they have a reason to use you.
Yes.
So every
Yeah.
company will say, oh, we'll give them a first can of paint for free, whatever color they choose, right? So you're like, okay, cool. So then you put in your little spreadsheet, first can of paint for free, right? And you keep building your what I call
Right.
preferred vendors list. So if anyone's looking for anything real estate related, you're like, oh, let me send you my preferred vendors list. These are the companies that I worked with, from the plumbers to the electricians to the dog walkers to the moving companies to the painters to the, you name it, everybody's on that preferred vendors list in different categories, right? So you have
Wow.
3 painters, you have 3 electricians, 3 plumbers, three of everything, because in real estate we can't steer, which means we can't just recommend one, at least in Michigan. And so I would have 3 of everything. And guess what happens when you start sending them some leads? Because you start mailing out these preferred vendors lists, right? So your friends and family and your Facebook friends and stuff, they're gonna start using your local painter. And so now your local painter is like, oh shit, Gogo sent me 3 leads this week, so I guess I
Yeah.
should send her some leads this week. People start owing you.
Yes, you build that reciprocity ahead of time. And then when it comes down to them thinking, okay, so this person's buying or selling right now, they can think, oh, who do I know who could help them? Gogo is the person, because she's helped me over the years. She's helped me so much that I've got this built up desire to want. And it's so natural as a human to want to give back when somebody gives to you so much. And so you're leading with value, you're building these relationships up. And that's how you could become really the preeminent realtor in your marketplace, by having these relationships and incorporating the strategy that you just went through. It was a blueprint for success that you just went through. I mean, that was the step-by-step system that if you just followed what you just said right there, then you're good to go. There's nothing else that you need to do. I mean,
Just need
starting
to do
from
it. Nothing
scratch.
works unless you do.
Yeah, exactly, right. And starting from scratch too. It's not like you have to start off as the Gogo Bethke of your city, of your town. It doesn't matter where you're at right now. You're talking about starting from scratch and being able to build this momentum, and also formulating this social media presence along the way as almost a byproduct of building these relationships, which I think
Exactly.
most people would miss, because some people might be forming these relationships, but they don't document it, and they're missing out on all kinds of potential short and long term because they're not documenting it. It's incredibly helpful what you just went through. Is there anything else that you would recommend to a realtor who's maybe struggling, or heard the blueprint that you just went through? What are some objections that you typically get when you share these gold mines with folks?
This might sound not nice.
Okay.
I would respond, any other excuses?
Hmm. Hmm.
Get out of your head, you're dead. You have 2 options, you do it or you don't. Based on that, you're going to have the result, that the effort that you put in, right?
Right.
So it's super simple. If people are not having the results that they want, that just means they didn't put in the work that it takes.
Yeah. And you gave them the work to do, because now they don't have the excuse of not knowing what to do, because you just shared exactly what to do step by step. And thank you for that. Incredible. So is there anything else you'd like to add in terms of what you would share to a realtor who's thinking about implementing these strategies right now?
I mean, the only other thing probably, like for me, I did not join a team when I was new because I had too much of an ego. So if I would
Hmm.
change something, is I would join a team right away. And I would be
Interesting.
at every listing appointment. I would go to every training. I would soak up anything they would give me because I know I could speed up the trajectory of my success. So being a solo agent and trying to figure it out on your own is going to take you time, right? And I'd rather
Hmm.
pay 50% of my commission to someone to buy speed, right? Because if I
Right.
can, maybe in your first 6 months as an individual realtor, you might sell a house, but if you join a team, you're going to sell a house a month, right? So
Right.
that's 6 months of giving up 50% of your commission. Most agents don't do it because I'm like, I'm not building your brand and I'm not giving you 50%. Well, keep 100% of nothing. How's that going to work,
Right. No
right?
kidding.
So for me, I would join a team now and I would be at every meeting. I would go take every listing appointment. If somebody's going to a listing appointment, I would freaking jump into their car just so I can shadow them, right? And
Wow.
I would do whatever it takes for those 6 months so I can buy knowledge and buy it with speed, right? And then after 6 months, I would go out as an individual agent, but by that time, I would know what I'm doing. That's the only thing I would do different than I didn't do myself when I got licensed.
What's the number one thing that you did do that you thank your lucky stars that you did? Because if you didn't do this one thing, then you would have not had the
Social
success that
media,
you're having right now. Social
social
media,
media,
right? Yeah,
hands
yeah.
down, hands down.
Hmm. What else? What else for a top thing that you did and you're so grateful that you did, because if you hadn't, then you wouldn't have been able to do what you're doing now.
I think it's just tenacity. Like there's no no
Hmm.
for me. I will go until
I
there's a
can
yes.
tell.
I
I
will
can
ask
tell. I
someone
love that
until
about
they
you.
out of their pure annoyment gonna say yes, right?
Hmm.
I'm the sorest loser you ever meet. I do research on everything that I ever do. I figure out kind of where I fit in, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, and then I go get trained on my weaknesses, or I hire someone who's really good at that
Yep.
naturally, so I don't have to learn something that doesn't come natural to me. I have a lot of assistants. I know my hourly rate. I know where it's my best time to spend time, right? So for example, even as a brand new agent, you have to know, okay, if I spend 2 hours on lead generation every single day, but I hire a VA for those 2 hours to do all the other stuff that needs to get done, like my posts, my comments, right, set up my meetings for next week, all of that stuff. So I'm spending 2 hours on lead generation, which I know that if I spend 2 hours on lead generation, maybe I get 10 leads. And in those 10 leads, I know then I have a 50% closing rate, so I can close 5, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Whatever those people's closing rates are. I know if an average commission for me is, let's say, $10,000, like I just made $50,000 in this hour, right?
Yeah.
Should I be doing the data entry, or should I pay someone $5 an hour to do the data entry? Even from day one. I wish I would have known that lesson. I learned this
Wow.
lesson now 5, 6, 7 years ago. I have 20 some assistants now. And
Wow.
I don't do anything that I'm not good at. I don't do anything that I don't enjoy. I don't do anything that doesn't make me the money. I don't take
Hmm.
random meetings unless that person deserves a spot in my calendar. So because of that, I get to run 9 companies. Many of them are multi-million-dollar companies. One of them is actually a $2 billion business. We generated $2.1 billion in sales last year in 2023. But then I still have a life, right? Because
Hmm.
I want you to start thinking from day one, how do you want to build it? Because you don't want to build it to the point where your head is spinning and then you have no life. That is not my desire, right? Like at 3, 4 o'clock every day, I'm done. I have every night with my family. I can go play pickleball or go out to dinner or do whatever I want. Have the weekends for myself. I don't work weekends. I actually work Monday to Wednesday. So to answer it in a roundabout way, to answer your question, even if I was a brand new agent, really your success depends on your work ethic. I will not lose. There was no plan B for me. I think that is the
Hmm.
worst thing when people have a plan B. Well, I would like to make $100,000, but if I make 60, I
Right.
guess that's fine too. So I think 2 things are wrong with that. We have an internal GPS. Right. So if you give 2 addresses, when you get in your car and you say, I'm going to Kentucky, but if you take me to Alabama, I guess it'll be fine.
Right. And
Right? So you're
then
like, so
what
then your
happens at the end of
GPS
the day?
says,
You do both at the
so
same time? Hold on
yeah,
a
so are we going to
second.
Alabama or are we going to Kentucky? Where the heck are we going? Right? So then
Yeah.
your internal GPS can possibly take you there when you have a plan B. So in my mind, it's a plan A only. This is what we are doing, and this is the time by when we're going to get there. And the time important is, or the time factor of it is so important too. I learned that at a Tony Robbins event. People just say, I want to make money, right? Not how much
When?
and not by when. So if
Yeah.
you say, okay, I want to make $100,000. Okay, by when? By the time you're 94 years old, or by December 31st of this year, right?
Yeah.
Because your GPS can't get you there unless it knows where and when. Like when you plug it into the GPS, your address, like let's say you figure out $100,000, Kentucky, right? You say, okay, cool, we're going to Kentucky. And then the GPS says, do you want to walk it? Do you want to take public transportation?
Yeah.
Do you want to
Yeah.
bike it? Do you want to take highways or back roads? Like God gives you a choice. God gives you options. The question is, how fast do you want to get there? Do you want to make $100,000 by December 31st, or do you want to make $100,000 by the time you're 94 years old?
Right.
So
And
it's
I've
what
seen
you
it
want
personally.
and by when.
And it is incredibly fascinating because like okay, there was a time in my life where I needed to make $6,000 or I was totally fucked. I mean, if I didn't make 6 grand, and it was within 8 days or something like that. I think it was 8 days, where if I didn't make 6 grand in 8 days, I started with from nothing. I didn't know what to do. But if I didn't make the 6 grand in 8 days, then I was totally fucking screwed. Bankrupt, like didn't know what was gonna happen, total uncertainty. So I found a way within these 8 days to make the $6,000, and I was
Isn't
blown
that
away by that.
funny how your brain works when you force it? When you
No
say there is no
kidding,
plan
right?
B, we have until Friday, and there was
Yes.
$6,000 coming my way.
Right. See, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, and then something you tap into something there. You see, you're calling it God, right? You're tapping into God's, drive. I don't know how to explain it. I mean, how would you put words to that? What is that you're tapping into when you put a timeline to something like that?
I
How
think it's
would you
just most
describe
people
that?
floating through life. Like they're not serious with themselves either. They don't even know what, in Hungarian, we say what cloth you are cut out of, meaning that you don't even know who you are. You don't even know what you're
Yeah.
capable of because you never tested yourself. Right.
Right.
So when you test yourself and be like, okay, I give myself until December 31st to make $100,000, or I give myself until Friday to make $6,000, right? Because that's what I need to get done, or we're not eating this month. Right.
Yeah.
Like the easiest way for me to understand it or to think of it when I'm so set forcing myself, it's different now than I have children. I don't know, Kyle, if you have children.
Nope. Not
You know.
yet.
So
Not yet.
it gets easier when you have children, right? Because think of it this way.
Because
Let's
you
say you
have
have two
to.
children and you say, I have to make $6,000. My kid's not eating this month.
Mm,
Would you figure it
mm.
out? Like if I have to go
Absolutely.
take a
You
night
got to
shift at
get
Taco Bell on
choice.
Christmas Eve, then I freaking go take a night shift at Taco Bell. I'll do whatever it takes because my kid is not going to starve.
Right.
Right. So I look at everything that I'm doing. Imagine if my kid was starving. What would I do? And you'll figure it out
Interesting.
very fast. You'll figure it out what would you would do. Right. But I also feel like it's super important to have that relationship with your creator and know who you are and know that what God created you to be. And so one of the books that this is my little go-to, it's a little
Yeah.
packet book. So it's
Oh,
tiny. Like
yeah.
I have small hands, but it's literally as small as my hand, right? It's called The Greatest Salesman in the World. And the scroll, which is chapter 11, I think it is. It's my favorite. Let me read it to you. I am nature's greatest miracle. Since the beginning of time, never has there been another with my mind, my heart, my eyes, my ears, my hands, my hair, my mouth. None that comes before, none that lives today, and none that comes tomorrow can walk and talk and move and think exactly like me. All men are my brothers, but yet I am different from each. I am a unique creature. I am nature's greatest miracle.
Mm. Wow. And so
And
to
you know
really
it because
instill
there's
that
not another
belief.
fingerprint, there's not another retina, there's not another DNA, there's never been another human just like you. So if you know that you are unique and you know that God gave you this idea, I believe that when God gives us an idea, he gives it to us because he created us. He knows who we are. He knows that we are absolutely capable of doing what the opportunity is, but he also gives us a choice. And so
Mm.
my question to your listeners is, do you have the balls? What it takes to make that idea a reality? And that's where most people stop because they don't know who they are. They don't know what they're capable of. God forbid they fail. But you can't fail. You can't possibly fail when you know that this idea is given to you by God because you had what it takes. If you know you already have what it takes, then why wouldn't you just take action?
Right. I mean, the
There's
question
no
becomes,
failure.
well, exactly, right? And then even if the failure becomes a success because you're
The lessons
succeeding
are
at
learned.
failing at least bare minimum, but then you're also learning, and that's a success in and of itself. But the question becomes, how do you artificially instill this because it has to be like, okay, like I'm not starving for 6 grand by next week, but how do I make it seem in my mindset that you have to make this amount of money in this amount of time or else? Because it's so easy to set a goal, to set a time on that goal, but then to also let it slip by. And then at the end, you're like, oh, well, I didn't make the 160K in the last month. That was the goal. So, we're going to work on that next month. But how do you really instill that drive that's necessary to make sure that you get there the same way that I had to make the 6 grand, or I was totally fucked? How do you instill that? How do you artificially generate that? So there's no chance of failure because you're going to do it regardless.
I would say two things. Number one is your standards.
Mm, mm,
So if you accept anything less than $6,000, that's your standard. You get to send that standard.
right. Mm.
So if you don't like the outcome, that's because you accepted it. You accepted to make anything less than that. It was okay in your mind. In my mind, it's not okay. This is my goal and that's where we are going. And if I'm not reaching that, which it's never an option, I always reach my goals because there's no plan B, right? But here's another way how you can do it. Write this down. It's called CPR. So I'm very stubborn. It's my way or the highway. When I said something, I could care less if the world is telling me that's a stupid idea. I'm going to do it anyway to find out if it was stupid or not, right? And then at the end, I was like, well, that was stupid, right? Or I'm like, oh, that was a great idea. Maybe it doesn't work for everybody else, but it worked for me, right? So the way CPR works is this. C is your commitment. So if I don't feel like doing something, but I know it needs to get done, I use CPR on myself. So for example, let's say your taxes need to be done. You're like, oh my gosh, that's the last thing I want to spend any time on, but I have to get it done by Friday, right? So I set a CPR. C is your commitment. So you say, okay, I have to get my taxes done by Friday, right? Like this is what I need to do. And this is, again, time by when, right? That's your commitment. P is your penalty. What happens if you don't get it done, Kyle?
I love that.
And then you set a penalty for yourself that hurts. So in my case, I would, for example, set the penalty of I have to jump out of an airplane. I hate heights. Like there's no freaking way that I'm going to jump out of an airplane. My heart would stop. Like there's no freaking way I could take that. I would die of a heart attack. So I set myself something that's painful because I know that there's no way I'm jumping out of an airplane, which means I have to get it done by Friday. And here's a catch. You're as good as your word. So if you don't get it done by Friday and you set your penalty that you're jumping out of a plane, well, guess who's jumping out of a plane on the weekend?
Wow.
This one. Because if not, you cheated yourself. You just cheated your own truth, right? Because you said you would do something and you didn't. And then the last one, the R, is your reward. Sometimes I do it because I'm too afraid of the penalty, but sometimes I do it because I want the dangling carrot. So then I would set my reward of like, ooh, that Gucci slide that wanted for 6 months, right? I'm like, okay, if I get my taxes done by Friday, I buy myself those Gucci sliders. I'm like, okay, right? So that's your R, your reward, or P, your penalty. C is your commitment. So it's the R. So I don't have to do it anymore because I always do as I say. Like there's no deviation from the plan in my life. But if you feel like you need a little guidance and you need something to hold you to it, your own word is really good to use, by the way, because you're as good as your own word. But if you need a little stronger than that, I will use CPR.
I love that because you're tapping into something psychologically significant, the positive and the negative. A lot of people will only choose the goal of what will happen. Like it looks all, Skittles and roses and daisies, and it's all great. But then they're forgetting the hell that they would pay if they didn't. So that's, you got something pushing you and pulling you at the same time. And so it doubles that motivation. And that's an interesting point too, is you got to go jump out of the plane if you told yourself that would be the penalty if you didn't do it, because then you're training yourself like, oh, well, this isn't that important. You're lying to yourself. And then when you begin to lie to yourself, it becomes easier to continue doing so. And then it's a downhill, you're going downhill from there. So you're saying to really jump out of that plane, do what the penalty would have been done. And then you reach that point of realizing internally that you have this self-trust in yourself that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And you develop
that's your character. I mean, you're not messing with my character. You're messing with your own character. If you want to lie to yourself and that's acceptable in your world, then you're going to lie to others, right? And those are the type of relationships that you're going to have.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. What we just went over is fascinating. We just went over something like, okay, we went over the how to, and then also the why, or the motivation piece to actually do it at the end of the day. It's awesome. So anything else you want to add? I mean, we've covered a lot here. It's so cool. What else do you have anything that you'd want to touch on before we go?
I don't know. I think we gave him plenty of homework to think on.
I think, and me as well. I think absolutely. Awesome. Gogo, thank you so much for being here. Absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that podcast episode. And if you want to get a free copy of my book, go to kylesbook.com and you can get a copy there. I'll talk with you soon.